We gon' run it, hit the field, blast off, watch 'em all fall. This is AFC North Talk. Got me hype, it's about to be a touchdown. Got the Ravens, Steelers, Bengals, and the Browns. Are you listening? It's time to get it hype. Tune in when the season poppin'. Yeah, we going live. Hey, knock 'em out. Hey, first down, going hard. Yes, indeed. AFC North Talk. Let's go. Hey, AFC North Talk.
Welcome to AFC North Talk. We are your roundtable that represent the AFC North. My name is Ace Boogie. I represent the Bengals. He is Tony Sereno. He represents the Steelers. We got Sonny, a.k.a. SCG Sports, that represents the Ravens. And my man, Quincy Carrier, who reps the Browns. How you guys doing today, man?
I feel terrible being this last spot over here. You know what I mean?
Hey, we got a real fight for 4 this week, and a real fight for 1 this week.
There's no real fight for 4. We had this conversation last week.
Well, since last week, my dog Omar came in hot with a new signing.
He watches the show. He watches the show.
Yeah, exactly.
He was like, they're not going to talk about Cole Holcomb like this.
How dare you? Besmirch the good name.
Lots of reconstruction going on there in the Steelers linebacker room. But yeah, that could be a good thing. But shout out to our Patreons for AFC North Talk. We got Adam Holland, Dom Gazzulo, Lewis Cousin, Leo Sell, Ray Rags, appreciate you, Wesley Worrell, and Christian Robb. If you guys are looking for that, you can find us on Patreon under the name AFC North Talk. That's going to get you guys tons of bonus content that we don't do here on the show. With the season cranking up, we're going to crank that back up. And we also have kind of betting information and just bonus material for you guys to consider. So if you do like that, definitely be sure to become a patron. You also get this cool shout out like we do on every show as well. Also be sure to hit that subscribe button and like button. We appreciate that. But we know why you guys are here. We're here to talk about the linebacker room. Obviously, we did the edge room last week. This is going to be based on the AFC North. So we're going to go from 4 to 1 like we normally do. Mm-hmm. And we're going to start off with Q, man. Q is over there in the dark, man. They're calling you a vampire, bro. They're calling you a vampire. Who do you have at number 4 for the linebacker room?
Was Quan Alexander enough? That's the question.
Did he put him over the top?
Did he put them over? This is crazy, though, to think about how fast linebackers age almost worse than like running backs in terms of like how we view them. Because like you could be a top tier linebacker one year, we talk about you as the next thing, and then gone. What was the dude's name? Was it Tampa Bay? Was it also Tampa Bay? Was he the guy Devin White?
Devin White had.
Oh my God, we were talking about him being like next to the second best linebacker in the league. And where's Devin White now?
Well, I mean, there's the other Devin like had one good year. You know, he had his rookie year. He was decent.
You talking about Devin Bush?
Yeah. Devin
You're
Bush.
confusing the term his best year personally in his career with good.
I mean, listen, you look at his numbers in his rookie year compared to other Steeler linebackers.
You're like, if he could improve on that, he'd be decent. Yeah, I know. Then he never improved on it.
I mean, he was not horrible. And then everyone else's Steelers have had since then. Not an ideal room.
Remember Joe Schobert?
Well, I'll talk about Joe Schobert here in a minute. You were talking about. It's funny you were talking about. You were talking about Quan Alexander. You know, being like it's a how they go from 1 year being great to the next not so great. You know, Quan Alexander literally went from 1 year of being like the best linebacker in the league,
Mm-hmm.
and then every other year happened.
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough.
He was like on a different team quick. At first, he was like on the Bucks for a while, and then next thing you know, he's just like a journeyman. And I'm like, no, Quan Alexander. I remember seeing like him out there, like, oh, the Bengals should pick him up. And yeah, he's just a journeyman. It's crazy.
Common theme. We gonna talk about some more LSU linebackers in this show. But you know, go ahead.
Oh, no, well, I was going to say you might compare that LSU linebacker at this point to a former safety on the Steelers. I think he's had a similar trajectory. He had a lot of expectation, Then he got an elite
you're
player
talking
put
about
next to him.
You're talking about Edmonds. Okay, I was like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
knew you ain't
Not
calling
Minka.
that
My goodness.
Minka. Have you lost your mind?
Yeah,
Now,
Patrick
Quan-
Queen is the Minka Fitzpatrick of the division. Yeah.
They got Quan Alexander basically to help out the play-by-play guy. You know, when they have to introduce who's starting, they got to give them a bone. You know what I mean? And the Steelers linebackers were coming up, and the play-by-play guy was like, "We got number 32." Like he would just have to say the number. Like, you know, in Madden, when you put a creative player in, they got the last name in the database. That's the kind of life that the Steelers were living in linebackers. So they finally got a recognizable name in there. Not necessarily the best player, but like, I mean, like, I'm not going, if I spent 10 minutes shitting on their linebacker room last week, adding a body's not a problem. Like, that can only be a good thing. Look, and let's be real here. This is
Are you
probably
putting the Steelers 4? Are you putting the Steelers 4?
Yeah, I think I got to. I think I got to.
All right.
Do I have to?
You can
Yeah,
put the Ravens. You can put the Ravens 4. I think you can put the Ravens.
because I think that no, I'm not going to put the Ravens at 4.
Oh, did you not? You check the DMs because I did send some clips out earlier just to make sure everybody's on the same page with Roquan.
Did you see a biased reporting about TJ Watt? You know, nobody wants the regression of TJ Watt.
Well, as I told you, Darnell Washington is the best blocking tight end of all time.
Or TJ Watts gets stuffed up by a rookie.
Well, because he's the best blocking tight end of all time.
We tell you, David Njoku would never do that to Myles Garrett.
David
Njoku would never be able to do that to Myles. You know what I mean? See, we've been having a problem with Myles making everybody look bad. I mean, I know TJ ain't like that, but it's cool. So let's talk about Quan. Let's talk about the Steelers linebackers. The issue here is like, they're both like the Browns and Steelers. This is what it comes down to for me. Have very vanilla rooms, very much. They'll get the job done. Like kind of rooms, right? Like they're not terrible. They're not the most recognizable names for the most part, but they'll get the job done. The difference is I still believe that there's a little bit of an upside there with JOK that I don't see an equivalent player for the Steelers here. So this is why, in all seriousness, I would put them at 4. Maybe you think Quan Alexander, you know, he's going to get back into Quan Alexander mode, even though, how old is he now? Is he like 32?
No, he's 20. He's only 28. I mean, you want to talk about how fast it happens.
Yeah, 28. It's supposed to be his prime. Remember that? Remember 28 being some players' primes? You know what I mean?
Believe his all-pro season was, I think, 2017, I want to say.
It was all-pro. Was it the second year in Tampa Bay?
Yeah, in Tampa, yeah.
Yeah. 25 is where like running backs and linebackers peak. It's brutal. This is a brutal business for those positions. It really is. Maybe you should get rid of the rookie pay scale. But this is why I'm putting the Steelers here. I think it's a fine room. Let's be real. They're not going to be an abysmal linebacking room. I think as long as everybody stays healthy, they'll be all right. You know, sometimes at linebacker, especially when you have schemes that are so aggressive at the front, like the Steelers, linebackers just need to be where they're supposed to be, right? Yeah. What you don't want is the freelancer in that system, because that could be an issue. We saw this with Baltimore in 2019, right? Remember, Baltimore had that front. There were the pass rush by committee, but then they had, what was it, Peanut Pat Onwuasor, or I forget how to say his last name, but he kept on being places he wasn't supposed to be, kept blowing up the defense. They had to bring in LJ Fort to kind of hold it down there with Ace's favorite linebacker of all time, Josh Bynes, and they ended up being pretty good after they made that move. So they'll be fine there at linebacker. I think
Hall of Famer Josh Bynes. Okay.
Hey man, you had some advanced numbers that were crazy on Josh Bynes. That's
PFF. I blame them. I've never.
Yeah, no. PFF's grading on inside linebackers in general is
I tried to tell y'all, PFF still thinks DeMario Davis is the greatest inside linebacker of all time. Go look at the grades. He's like top 5 every year. I'm like, come on, dog. He was an average player when he was in Cleveland. But yeah, so that's where I'm at with Pittsburgh. I don't think it's a bad room. It's a very unrecognizable room outside of Quan Alexander, but like that doesn't necessarily equate bad. They got some journeymen. Their special teams is gonna be great because they gonna have they starting linebackers on special teams. You know what I mean?
We got Tanner Muse and Kwiatkowski in that room, dog.
And y'all got the Hayward,
our core special teamers.
You got the other Hayward, who's a beast at special teams.
I can't wait to see. I can't wait for you guys to see Connor.
Y'all got the best special teams unit.
Lighten it up out there.
If you factor in defense, we got to rank the Ravens number 2 at special teams if we end up getting there. But yeah, I think that's a fair place to put the Steelers given what everybody else has. I mean, we were talking about the top 2 in this division. They have some of the better linebackers in all of football right now. But like we mentioned with Quan Alexander, it can go away for Logan Wilson.
All right, well, I'm going to get into a couple of super chats, and then I'll get my ranking here. Then we'll toss it to Tony and round it out with Sonny. Professor Chaos, $5 super chat. Appreciate that, man. He says, I want to give a shout out to Somalia's fastest female sprinter. I'll be rooting for you in Budapest and Hungary. So shout out to that Somalian sprinter there. And then Ray Rags here with a $5 donation says that my donation to Tony's Hall of Fame game bet.
That's a great. All right, what am I putting it on, boys? We're gonna go money line here. What do we like? Who's the?
You're gonna bet against the Browns.
I gotta bet against the Browns. I think. Yeah. I think I gotta go $5 money line on the Jets.
Heads up, by the way, preseason GOAT's not playing. You know what I mean?
No Josh Dobbs.
No Josh Dobbs. We're going Kellen Mond DTR, but
DTR.
DTR.
Yeah, because you gotta give your future.
Well, we gotta see what we got in
DTR prop bet. DTR prop bet for rushing yards would be a nice.
You got to get DTR out there because you got to know what you have in your future starter. So
what's the Cedric Tillman prop bet? That would be a good one. The Cedric Tillman prop bet.
You can't get prop bets in the preseason. If they offer prop bets in the preseason, I'll be all over that. But those won't come out until tomorrow.
Nova Stone's got one here for $2. He says Ravens a clear 1. It ain't close. Only Fred is better. Who's Fred? Is he talking about Fred Warner?
Warner is the only better linebacker in the league than Roquan as well.
Man, Roquan Smith is so overrated.
Then we got Professor K out there, $5 super chat. Ace, what was your reaction to the Joe Burrow versus Kirk Cousins graphic? There really was none because super small sample size to compare to another guy who's had a whole bunch of other games. But I mean, hey, it is what it is. People are going to find something to say about Joe Burrow.
Whoa. What was the graphic trying to say?
Kind of weird because it's always in the realm of the playoffs, even though Joe Burrow, as we talked about last week, is like the clutchest quarterback in the NFL in the fourth quarter during the regular season. So I didn't really have much of a reaction to it. I don't think Kirk Cousins is bad, but Joe Burrow is not Kirk Cousins. We're not going to do that.
Would you trade Joe Burrow to get 3 firsts to Kirk Cousins?
No, I don't think anybody would do that. I don't think anybody.
All right, can we pivot real quick to talk about Kirk Cousins? Have you guys watched the show Quarterback on Netflix?
I watched a couple episodes. I didn't get into the rest of them.
I kind of like Kirk Cousins now. Like watching.
See, this is why I hate documentaries. It makes somebody who's a good punching bag like Kirk Cousins likable, and now I can't jump off all these Kirk Cousins jokes.
He's such a nerd, man. He is such a nerd, and obviously, I am a computer programmer in my day job. I am also a huge nerd, and I mean, yeah, I kind of like him now. I kind of like Kirk. I have to be a Kirk Cousins guy now.
Yeah,
this is worse than when you joined the Heineke Hive. Okay, this is worse.
I have a brand.
Get the Heineke Hive.
At least I have a brand in that.
So it appears Sonny's having some technical issues. I don't know if he's going to be able to return, but we do have his ranking. Looks like, his internet is having some issues there. But for me, here is fourth. And I think that Quincy said it right. I don't think this is a bad room. I think it was a bad room last year. I think that they're undergoing some changes here, changing some stuff around. Obviously, the Miles Jack thing didn't work out. Devin Bush didn't work out. They went out and ended up extending, I believe, Landon Roberts. So basically, I don't know if it was him or Cole Holcomb. They gave one of those linebackers Devin Bush's contract, basically. And they were like, we're just going to let you go. We're going to give that money to someone else. You bring in Quan Alexander. You're really just trying to find out what you have in that room that you weren't getting much from. So I'm not mad at it. I think it's actually kind of parallel to like the Ravens when they weren't getting enough out of the wide receiver room. They tried taking some stabs here, doing some different things. It's just weird for me to see a Steelers linebacker room that isn't like amazing, because I just think about the Joey Porter years. I think about James Ferrier. I think about, Ryan Shazier, all of the times that they've always had linebackers. For this to be the reality, I don't think it's a bad thing. I just think that they're in transition. They're trying to figure out that position. It's been a struggle since they lost Shazier, honestly. They've kind of struggled to replace him since then. Took the gamble on Devin Bush, didn't work out. But I do like them just, biting the bullet. Like, I'm not going to pay Devin Bush a bunch of money for him to be bad. So I'm not mad at him. I don't think it's a terrible room. I think that, it could be a pleasant surprise. We'll see. They may make some other moves here with cut downs coming through. I mean, we didn't expect them to sign Quan Alexander, so I do like that move. But like Quincy is saying, I just think that there's some more upside potentially in other rooms with some younger guys versus what they have. But I do think Quan Alexander is a pretty solid linebacker. I don't know where I would rank him if we were ranking these guys individually. He might be in the top 7 for me. So I do think that Quan is a good signing by them. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I've got the Steelers there, and with that, I'll throw it to Tony.
Hey, so if Quan was signing with the Ravens, he would have a comeback season.
Look, you guys don't need to take it easy on the Steelers. This is definitely the worst room in the division in the inside linebacker. I mean, they are clearly 4 for me, even after signing Quan. If you told me right now I could trade rooms with anyone in the division, including the Browns, I would take the Browns room in a heartbeat. I mean, I probably like Taki more than a lot. I certainly have been a JOK guy. But I think Q nailed it here as far as, the Browns just have a player in JOK that has real upside. You can make an argument that Cole Holcomb has some upside. I know Steeler fans will believe that Mark Robinson has some upside, but I mean, this guy's 6th-round pick last year. This is just, Ace, you said it best, man. This room just has not had any stability to it whatsoever, going back to 2017, right? The year that Ryan Shazier got hurt. Ever since then, this has been a revolving door, and they've tried. John Bostic came through. They drafted Devin Bush. They brought in Mark Barron for a little while. Joe Schobert was in this room for a year, right? I mean, they just kind of mix and match all the time. The through line was supposed to be Devin Bush. Obviously, he didn't work out. Last year they bring in Miles Jack. I mean, look, for all the things we're saying about Quan Alexander, he could be good. Yeah, I mean, he's probably the best player. Okay, but we just did this with Miles Jack a year ago. Right? We just did this, and we saw how that turned out. Miles Jack, not a bad player, can't stay healthy. Banged up the entire year, in and out of the lineup. They had, really the players that they were counting on at the end of last year, especially in running downs, was not Miles Jack, and it was not Devin Bush. It was Robert Spillane, and it was Mark Robinson. By the way, the fact that Robert Spillane no longer in the room, Miles Jack no longer in the room, Devin Bush no longer in the room. There's 3 of your 4 linebackers from a year ago. I think and also Marcus Allen was the other inside linebacker from a year ago. He's no longer in this room. I think tells you everything about where this room was a year ago. And so, do I love the players they brought in? I don't love any of them. I think Quan Alexander, like you guys said, has some upside there. He's certainly a good coverage linebacker. And he could be a bit of a thumper at times as well. But the question for him is, can he stay healthy? Cole Holcomb was a nice player in Washington, but again, no one had heard of him before we started doing research for this show, right? I mean, I know for a fact, Ace, Q, Sonny, right? You guys were not familiar with Cole Holcomb's work, nor was I before the Steelers signed him. Now, he was a productive player in Washington. He's got the athletic traits of someone who could be a good linebacker in this league. He hasn't done that yet. The thing I worry about most with him is that the Steelers are going to trust him in coverage because, boy, you watch some of those reps of him in coverage and he's not great. Honestly, the linebacker I like the best in this room right now is a Landon Roberts, but you guys know how much I like players who are just see ball, get ball, right? Like the heat-seeking missile type player, I gravitate towards that. And same thing in running backs, right? I gravitate towards the guy who's like, I'm going to put my head down. Yeah, the guy exactly.
Tony likes players with really short careers,
but like willingly short, like they are trying to have short careers. So yeah, I mean, look. This is a room, I think, my hope for this room in 2023, I think all Steeler fans have to hope this, is that this is a kind of Mike Tomlin room. If you listen to Tomlin recently, he stopped talking about position flexibility and jack of all trades type players. Instead, he talks more about the specialty player, replacing greatness with specialty players. If you think about what he did in replacing Mike Hilton, he didn't go out and try to find another nickel corner that had all the same traits as Mike Hilton. You're not going to find that. Mike Hilton's a very unique player. But find someone on early downs who can have the same skill set as Mike Hilton did in run situations, and then find someone on passing downs who had the kind of the coverage capabilities of Mike Hilton. And that's two different players. And I think hopefully what Tomlin's going to be able to do, given that, the Steelers can essentially go 3, maybe even 4 deep at this position, is find guys who fit in certain situations, guys who work well in base, guys who work well in nickel, guys who work well in dime, and mix and match at the position, because they don't, there's not a standout. Even, to me, Quan Alexander, I hope he stays healthy because I think he could be a standout. But let's be honest with it, he's a journeyman at this point. There's a reason why he was available at the start of training camp. Got signed 2 days into training camp. Great players who could be the best at their position, players who could be all pros, are just not available this late in the year. So, Steelers for me, easy 4.
Yep. Sonny also had the Steelers at 4. I don't know if we got a reasoning for it, but he did have that. And Sonny, if you are listening, try to put your reasonings in there. I'll get that in.
He says they'll be solid because of the front, but the Steelers, like the Ravens did for years in the wide receiving room, it's a patchwork.
Gotcha. Yep. So, appreciate that. Got a super chat here from Ravens fan John Moore for $4.99. Just want to say Q is a Ravens fan. He can't stop smiling talking about them. LOL.
Because y'all funny.
So that's going to bring us to number 3.
I read about the Bengals. We're all like, I love the Bengals. Nothing brings my week better than playing the Bengals. Oh, man, I hope I have a good week 1. You know what I mean?
No, for sure. But that brings me to number 3. I'm going to go on this one, then we'll go to Tony and Q. I've got the Browns here, and honestly, you could make an argument, or I feel like after I actually reviewed their linebacker room, you could make an argument that it's possibly the second deepest room in the division. However, it's led by JOK, and then there's question marks with Anthony Walker, who I actually like. I think Anthony Walker is pretty underrated. I actually had me and Zim did a Cincinnati linebacker individual one, and I actually had Anthony Walker as like a top 5 linebacker in this division. Based off of that. But obviously, there was a lot of injuries that happened last year for the Browns. I think you also have Taki there, who I also think is solid. Jacob Phillips, like they're pretty much 4 or 5 deep here. But the big thing is what gets them up to the second position, or first possibly. I don't know if you could say first just because of other linebackers, but what would raise them from 3 to 2 for me would just be an amazing year by JOK, which I think the potential's in there. He hasn't had bad years at all. I just don't think that he's lived up to that year that we're expecting to see from him. And obviously last year there were some injuries, so I don't think that it's out of any kind of way that he can't have that year. So I think JOK may be in for a big year, and they're going to need him to lead that linebacker core. So that's really what puts them there for me. I think Taki's solid. I don't, think that he's a bad linebacker by any stretch. I believe SIS actually had Taki with 1.7 total points per game. That's the little metric that they kind of use there, which is actually pretty good. So for me, I've got the Browns at 3, but I do think that they could potentially move up this season. And with that, I'll throw it to Tony.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And I think for similar reasons, right? I think JOK, the expectation, I know I was really high on JOK. I got myself into some trouble last year for liking JOK.
What are you talking about, Tony?
For liking JOK more than Logan Wilson.
Just because the roller coaster ride dips don't mean it ain't going back up. Stay on the train. Right. Buy the dip.
I'm not. I got myself in trouble. I didn't say I was getting off.
This is the time to get more stock. You know what I mean?
That's right. Buy low. And we are buying pretty low right now because, unfortunately, there were injuries there. JOK just, he didn't have the leap year to year that you would have wanted. Now, you could, and I'm sure Browns fans will certainly blame the environment that he was in. It wasn't exactly a great defense that he was in. Certainly, it wasn't a well-schemed defense that he was in. I think we saw that.
We don't even know what they was trying to scheme. He wasn't running it.
So it wasn't a well-disciplined defense.
How many arguments was it? Cover 6? Was it cover 2? Nah, it was cover 3. It just looked like that.
Yeah. So I'm still I want to believe, very, very much. I'm still on like the Njoku thing. I want to believe that he can eventually get there. I think JOK could eventually get there too. And he's the one player in this room who you really believe in. I like Taki a lot, for what he is. And then, Anthony Walker. what a good year for Anthony Walker. And shout out to Colts fans, because I do remember Colts fans saying after the Browns signed him that, like, man, Walker was such an important piece of our defense. They're going to love him. Had a great year. I mean, just had a good year. So, I think, for me, it's an easy 3 though, because obviously 2 and 1 are legitimately good, right? 2 and 1 are like, are they the best linebacker group in the division, in the league type rooms again? So,
I feel that way about 1. I don't feel that way about 2, but I would put the Browns here at 3. I think they slide in perfectly, right? They just didn't have the year that you wanted. A lot of reasons you could blame it on, right? The defensive tackle play was some of the worst in NFL history. And then you have other issues, guys being all over the place, nobody being where they're supposed to. That's really going to affect linebacker play. And then, on top of all that, all these guys got injured. And that's the big concern with the Cleveland Browns room, right? Every single one of these starters we talked about went out for the season at some point during the year, right? JOK is coming back from a season-ending injury. His was late, so it's not that deep. But he didn't get surgery on that foot, which I'm a bit concerned about. Then you have Anthony Walker, who kind of just got hurt very early on in the season in the game versus Pittsburgh. And then Sonny Takitaki, who tore his ACL. He's already back practicing, but these are guys coming off of season-ending injuries. I do worry about that. But I think the group is solid, right? Anthony Walker is a fine Mike linebacker. If that's all you need him to do, he can do that. I do worry if he has to be put in more kind of like complex coverage situations like he will in Jim Schwartz's defense. Those grades, so he gets on PFF, will start to drop a little bit, because right now he has like a 90 coverage grade, and that's just not Anthony Walker. But JOK is always going to be good in coverage. The question is, hey, did guards kind of adjust to the way that he attacks them, right? Because we looked at year 1, and those guards weren't an issue. Those tight ends weren't an issue. He was able to get around those blocks. Year 2, it became a little bit of an issue. Now, he was playing through some injuries. He had some personal stuff going on, all this stuff that factors into it. But still, there's some football stuff there's some football questions that was left on that tape that you're not just going to solve by blaming it on Joe Woods. So there's some questions about JOK. Sonny Takitaki is really the only one I don't have that many questions about, because like what he's asked to do is real simple, and he's been good at it for like 3 years, I think, since 2020, right? Like run defense, stuff like that, be a short burst guy, back up Mike linebacker. He's kind of our Robert Spillane. You know what I mean? But then you look behind him. Speaking of LSU linebackers, by the way, that 2018 team's not looking great, because Pat Queen's road dog in their defense, Jacob Phillips, he's taking snaps behind Mahmoud Diabate, who was an undrafted free agent. So it's looking bad for Jacob Phillips in that LSU team. So I don't know what kind of snaps he's going to get. Tony Fields had a pick 6 when he came in last year. He looks all right. The backups look fine when it comes to the linebacking room. I think the depth's all right. I really have an indifferent attitude towards linebackers in most schemes. Only ones I'm a little bit kind of more aggressive about are like teams that really do run a lot of like base 4-3, but like I don't think anybody in this division runs a ton of base 4-3. Like even the Bengals, they run base, but they run out of 4-2-5 a lot. Steelers kind of run out of that. They run a 3-4, and same thing with the Ravens. The Browns did run the most base in the defense, but that's probably going to change. I think that this is a fine linebacking room. It could be better. JOK could become a star in this defense, maybe become the player that me and Tony thought he would be. By this point, we'll see. But even if that doesn't happen, I think they have enough solid players around their defense to be able to put up like a good room.
Yeah, for sure.
I forgot that Anthony Walker, only played 3 games last year.
Yeah. People blamed him. They're like, oh, once Anthony Walker went down, the defense went to shit. I'm like, nah, we lost that game to the Jets. Like we gave up 14 points to Joe Flacco in 13 seconds.
So he is a good. He is a good communicator. I mean, that was the rep coming out of Washington with it.
Who might be the worst communicator of all time? Joseph Woods. Look, you can defend him on a lot of things. His scheme might not be that bad. It wasn't his fault. Nobody ran it. But communication, oh man, it was trash. 3 years, every year, Tony. We get into the first week of the deep. We get into the second week. Well, we just gotta get some communication stuff down. Every year. Yeah. And it takes like 12 weeks to fix.
Yeah.
Oh my, how does that happen in the NFL?
Yeah. Well,
it happens.
I hope it keeps happening.
Guys end up hiring their friends instead of hiring the right guys. Sometimes friendships get in the way of actually making the right hire.
I was talking about it's crazy with linebackers too. The domino effect that can happen that makes it go. That makes like one player doing the wrong thing consistently ruins the whole thing on defense sometimes, because it's like, okay, this corner doesn't carry their route. They never carry their route. They always forget to carry their route. Okay, cool. Now the safety is going to try to make an adjustment. Now this linebacker is playing deep to make the adjustment to the safety. Now this guy, now the other safety kind of moves in because he sees the other safeties over there, and then like the play gets busted. Then the coach comes to the sideline, gets mad and frustrated. He's like, "We're just going to run base," and then you run base and you get cooked. It's a never-ending cycle when they don't trust who's telling them to do stuff.
No, for sure. Looks like we are all in agreement with the Browns at 3. Sonny has the Browns at 3. His reasoning is, can JOK go back to what he was his rookie year? As I see, the biggest problem that I have with an undersized inside linebacker is having a weak front, but I expect the Browns inside linebackers to struggle again. I thought he was going to go positive, Sonny. You kind of started off positive and then you went negative there.
I don't think he knows that JOK changed his jersey number. And if he did,
to what?
He turned it back to his college number 6.
Oh,
it's better than 28.
Oh my!
It is better than 28.
I guess it's
28 was crazy.
Single digits for linebackers.
18 was worse
for a
though.
long time.
18 with Roquan was the worst linebacker.
18, like you can't do teens or like 20s as a linebacker. You could do single digits and you could do 50s. You know what I mean?
A player at inside linebacker who wears 18 probably couldn't even cover one of the least explosive running backs in the league, and Najee Harris out of the backfield on a wheel route and just unable to turn his hips, unable to.
Yeah, imagine if it was Joe Mixon. You know what I mean? What would have happened
for Najee? No bueno. But he turned into Randy Moss against Roquan there.
What is he gonna do if they? What is Roquan Smith ever gonna do if he runs up with Deebo Samuel coming out the backfield running the wheel route? You know what I mean? Like if he can't handle Najee running that route,
we play the West this year. The AFC North plays the West this year. We will find out.
We gonna find out that Roquan Smith is mid.
We got a super chat here from Mark for $5. Appreciate that, Mark. He says maybe if the Browns are lucky, JOK can develop into an elite player like Patrick Queen.
Love this.
Never heard elite and Patrick Queen.
Have you guys watched The Wire?
Of course.
Yep. So you guys know that Baltimore has a serious drug problem, so we should really be kinder to some of these super chats that we get from Baltimore.
Mark is in New Amsterdam right now.
You know what I mean? Yeah, he's in Buddy Coven's territory. Okay, you know what I mean? I didn't know they gave you cell service out there, but shout out to you. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir. I'm not sure how to pronounce this. I'm going to say one as a dad for $2. Appreciate that, bro. Steelers missed the 2000s linebackers, James Ferrier, Lawrence Timmons, and Harrison as well. That was, it's crazy.
Wait, what? The Larry Foote erasure right there. One as a dad. I hope you, I don't know. He's a Steeler fan. Come on, dude. Larry Foote was a good linebacker. What are we doing?
Got another one here from Professor Chaos for $5. It says, do the Browns have the best linebacker names? JOK, AWOC, Taki. Taki is
Taki is a great name.
Look, you have to be a fun energy linebacker if your name's Taki. You know what I mean? Like you just got to come in, do a couple blitzes, Taki. Like that's just real. You can't be on the field all the time. You know what I mean? Like
Takis are also a top 5 snack.
Takis are a top 5 snack.
You guys aren't eating the blue ones, right?
Crazy.
The blue ones and the red ones, I think they taste the same. I'm gonna be honest.
I just don't like how the blue ones look. It's like why? If it's hot, make it red.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
kids. Like when you were a kid, did you ever have like blue ketchup or purple ketchup? You know what I'm saying? Like
nah. Only blue thing I experimented with was like the Blue's Clues applesauce. You know what I mean? Like that was a big hit for me. But other than that, I want if it's hot, I want it red. You know what I mean? I don't want to confuse myself.
No, I got you.
Man, it's definitely something going on there in Baltimore because Mark comes back with another super chat for $2. JOK is mimicking his idol Pat Queen with the number 6.
It's a good thing that he's sending us this money and not,
That's true.
His dealer.
With every super chat, we are preventing,
But that's going to bring us to the top 2. I think this is where it tightens up, and you could give an argument, I think, for for either team in this scenario. So actually, we'll start off with Tony.
Oh no. Well, you know what's great about this is that you'll remember so I got into trouble on this show for two reasons. One, I said I like JOK more than Logan Wilson. But I also made another comment on that show 1 year ago. You can go back and listen. I said, boy, you know what the Bengals should do? Like, if they really wanted to make a splash in this defense and really go from what was a really good defense to potentially an elite defense, they should ditch Logan Wilson, get Roquan, and then the middle of that defense, and that will put them over the top, right? And obviously, Bengals fans did not enjoy that. It turns out another team followed my, they might have listened to the show and said, that's interesting. Get Roquan, change our defense into being an elite defense. I have the Bengals too. I'm interested to see where everyone else goes. I obviously I know where Sonny's going to go. I've read his, but I'm interested to see where you guys go. For me, look, I'll talk about why the Ravens are one, but the Bengals are not a bad room. I've talked about this before. This defense really makes this team go, especially in the playoffs. Obviously, Logan Wilson made some plays in that playoff game, did he not? I believe he was the one who stripped the ball out of.
It was actually both of them. It was actually Pratt and Logan Wilson.
Remember when he made that stop at the Super Bowl? They took it away from him? Ace.
That's right.
Yeah,
that was holding.
Yeah.
That was holding. That's out.
Nightmares.
That's actually a knock.
You imagine they let that play stand. Whole different game. We might be talking about the Bengals being Super Bowl champions. But oh well, they called it.
The craziest thing is the play before that, Jermaine Pratt literally does the same exact thing, and they don't call for it.
We know what happened there. It was like, hold on.
Are we ready? Are we ready to have the conversation about whether or not Jermaine Pratt's a better linebacker than Logan Wilson?
We can have that conversation.
No. Pratt's good though. Pratt's good. It was good that they kept him. I thought the Steelers might be in the market for a Jermaine Pratt. He had an amazing year last year. Really, you want to talk about a guy who made a leap year over year. Boy, did Jermaine Pratt turn himself into an impact linebacker a year ago. It was tough for me. I'm like, I don't think there's a whole lot that separates these two teams. I'll talk about why the Ravens are one. This is a good group. So yeah, I got them too though.
Go ahead, Q.
Okay, I got the Ravens at number 2.
Because you have a brand, and that brand is hating on Roquan.
Come on. I'm not a Roquan hater. I'm just going with the mere Pro Football Focus numbers. If the Pro Football Focus numbers tell me that the Cincy got 2 better than they won, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I can't argue with them. Can't argue with them. When Pat Queen was bad, they was backing us up, telling us Pat Queen was bad. When Pat Queen got better, they was backing us up, saying that Pat Queen was bad. When Myles Garrett got ranked higher than TJ, they was backing us up, saying that Myles Garrett was better than TJ Watt. I can't argue with their ratings on certain positions. Quarterback, we'll throw that out. But but linebacker, I do have to stick with it. But this is honestly like, I just don't see it. And maybe I am a Roquan Smith hater, but they traded for Roquan, and I'm expecting to see plays getting made from him and like show me what an impact high money linebacker looks like. And I saw the same defense that I saw before that. And it was a good defense, so they look good. They were a little bit better in some areas, but in the areas in which they cracked before, they still cracked and broke in those same spots. Still couldn't cover a running back. Like, Najee Harris, like, beat him down the field. That should have happened when you paying the linebacker that much money. And then Pat Queen, who he's gotten better. They used him more in some edge rush situations, but he's still Pat Queen. He still makes those same mistakes. It's just less important now because he's not the main guy making those mistakes on the defense. Now, look, this is not a bad room. They're number 2. Okay. The other room, I would argue, I would say I would take that linebacking room almost over any team in the NFL. But this is just this is a pretty good room. I think Roquan Smith, he's a above average linebacker. I don't think he's worth the pay grade that he gets put at. I don't think he's one of the best linebackers in the NFL. I think he's like, top 15, somewhere in there. But I do think he's overrated because people talk about Roquan Smith as if he's the second coming of Ray Lewis. And it's like, dog, it's not even close to that. But then again, Tony did compare Minka Fitzpatrick to Ed Reed. So like, I guess it's the world we're living in.
Am I wrong?
You're very wrong. That was just we almost got you arrested.
Players at their position.
We almost got you arrested for that take. You know what I mean? Like your license almost got revoked. Okay?
Well, I didn't compare him to the greatest of his generation, which is Troy Polamalu, but I was saying like
Troy Polamalu versus Ed Reed, that's not gonna get your license suspended. But like saying that Mika Fitzpatrick is better than Ed Reed will get your license suspended. It just will.
Yeah, for me here, I'm going with the Ravens at number 2. I think the Ravens have the best linebacker in the division. I don't think they have the best room. Hell, they didn't even exercise Pat Queen's 5th-year option. So that tells you right there that they're not satisfied with what Pat Queen has been. I mean, he's a first-round pick. He hasn't lived up to the hype. He's one of the reasons that they traded for Roquan in the first place, because that's technically supposed to be his position. I do think that Roquan made him better, but when you talk about the other room, I think that those two are pretty high-playing linebackers. I cannot say the same about Pat Queen. I don't know if Pat Queen is a top 5 linebacker in this division. I think he's a fringe top 5 linebacker in this division if you're going through everybody across the board. I mean, and the other thing is there's a reason that they ended up drafting Trenton Simpson. Like, they do not believe in Pat Queen. So although Roquan is that guy, I would never take that away from you. And this is the guy that said Logan Wilson before the trade happened was the best linebacker in the division. I will say that not Pat Queen, but Roquan Smith is the best linebacker in the division as it stands right now. But they do not have the best linebacker room after that, because after Roquan, who else are you really talking about? After you get past Pat Queen, you're depending on Trent Simpson, who I actually like, but obviously that has been yet to be proven with him not playing. Now, I think he'll be solid. I think he actually poses a threat to Patrick Queen if it doesn't work out. But I'm not ready to crown Pat Queen as this guy that's just completely changed when the Ravens haven't even exercised his option. Go ahead, Q.
I'm just going to say this. I feel like we put Roquan up there based on reputation, but I can name you like 5 or 6 Logan Wilson plays. I can name you a couple Jermaine Pratt plays. Yeah. Name me the Roquan Smith play that you remember from last
down to Najee Harris? What?
Yeah, I mean,
that's a good one.
You remember the plays he got put on him, but like, when were you like, damn, 18? Like, where are these plays at?
Yeah, I know he got some interceptions last year, but to say that he's like Ray Lewis, like, I don't know. I think he's a top. If I'm giving my honest opinion, I think he's a top 5 linebacker in the NFL, but he's not top 3 to me. I think he's maybe 4 or 5. But I mean, we'll see. Obviously, they gave him the bag. The other thing is he that much better than Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt? Like, Jermaine Pratt got $7 million. Roquan got 20. I don't know if he's, obviously Jermaine Pratt took a discount, but I don't think Roquan Smith is $13 million better a year than Jermaine Pratt. So I've got the Ravens here mostly not because of Roquan, but mostly because of the rest of their linebacker room that they have there. Honestly, if you're going off of depth, that's why I said Cleveland was 3, but I could see if you were just going off of depth why Cleveland could potentially be 2, but they just don't have someone better than Roquan in their room. If they had someone on the level of that, you could put them there. But I think the depth in the Ravens room is why I have them there. Sonny has the Bengals number 2, and he says that this is a duo that I enjoy. Wilson was once one of my favorites and still growing. I think he makes the next step to become a borderline Pro Bowler. Pratt is a very solid inside linebacker as well, and is physical.
Did he say that Logan's going to grow into a borderline Pro Bowler?
I think he already is.
Nasty.
I thought Sonny was like, oh, he's gonna try and do the whole. No, I really, Logan, don't yell at me, Bengals fans.
He's like, I'm gonna leave some room. He's like, yeah, he might be a Pro Bowler one day.
Yeah, like one day, if he really tries really hard.
You know what I mean?
Like what?
Damn.
He's almost a Pro Bowler right now.
Yeah. So I mean, Roquan's an All-Pro. It is what it is, but.
I'm just saying, man, like, I just have not seen it. I don't know. Like, for real. Like, what are these Roquan moments that make us go automatically he's top 5 in the league? I've never watched Roquan Smith. I've never watched the Bears or the Ravens play football. I was like, damn. I saw him in Georgia, and I was like, damn, Roquan. But, like, he ain't never looked like that in that league. Like,
yeah,
I look Shaq Leonard.
I see what you're saying, but our Ravens representative is not on the show, right? I mean, like, I'm sure Sonny could spew a bunch, but obviously,
I'm not even talking about when he's like, we're talking about a top 5 player at his position in the league. Like most guys like that. We have seen it. Like we see it all the time. We can pull up examples. Like if I were to say Nick Chubb's a top 5 running back in the league, you don't got to cover the Cleveland Browns and be like, yeah, I've seen some plays where it looks like that. But like,
yeah, but I couldn't name a Nick Chubb play from 2022 though. I mean, I could name some Nick Chubb plays, but they're from previous seasons.
I'm just saying, I can't even name Roquan Smith old plays. That's what I'm saying. Like, where are these Roquan? He got drafted in the first round. He was decent, and then everybody was like, "He's top 5."
Bengals fans,
you know what? New Allen Robinson alert.
Oh,
Roquan Smith.
Well, that one. See, you're not even right about Allen. You're not even. Right
I am right about Allen Robinson. I've been proven right for 3 years. I can't. Well, you can't. Even if he has a good year, like you can't reverse what happened to other people.
Yes, no, I absolutely can't. Nope. Like you said about JOK, just because you had one off year,
I'm locked in to being right about that. I was talking about his contract. You tell me he was worth a contract in 2020. I was right.
Tony, would you pay Roquan $20 million a year? I'm not trying to hate him. I'm just saying if it were you,
would I pay? Well, I mean that gets it. Like I think he deserves. I think he deserves to. I think he's the second best linebacker.
I'm gonna get a bunch of Roquan highlights.
So you say you feel like he's the second best linebacker in the NFL? Okay.
I just don't think Roquan's that good. I feel like he's just there because we used to saying Roquan Smith is top 5 linebacker. But I don't think we've questioned it enough.
Well, okay, but then the question I would have, because this is why I put him. I think he has had a Minkah Fitzpatrick like impact on that defense. You know, when you go back and listen to that show, right? At the time when they traded for him, that Ravens defense was bad. What are you talking about? You go back and how many fourth quarter disasters did they have?
They still had them.
Well. Okay, but that was like they lost because they gave up 16 points to Kenny Pickett. Which, listen, you know, Kenny's an elite player, so yeah, I don't know what you want me to do there.
I mean, Roquan is good, but has he had like a Bobby Wagner in his prime? Like,
well, let me. Okay, here's the numbers that I pulled up.
Do you feel about him the same way you used to feel about what's his name, Pat Willis?
Pat Willis.
Yeah, like, do you? Because like we talk about him,
I think he's top 5. I don't know if I
don't feel about him like that. Like I've seen it with Pat. I'm like with him, it's like I hear about it, I don't ever see it.
Here's okay. I have a slide to share. This is EPA per play defensively for the Ravens last year before they traded for Roquan.
Yeah, they got better for sure. I remember these numbers.
Can you pull that up?
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. So so this is a chart. Now you can't see the Ravens there because they're covered up by the Steelers as they should be. But there is.
Damn, look at the Browns. I don't know where that's at, but that's got to be the bad part of that.
Okay, chart. So the chart is bad. Bad in run defense is down, and bad in pass defense is left.
Okay.
Yeah.
Checks out.
Yeah, and this is weeks 1 through 8. So this is before.
This is before the Buffalo game. God damn. Where is this football? Where is this helmet? I need to see the next slide.
Yeah. So then the next one is everything after that, which I can pull that up here. Let's see if this will load on here. So this
ain't no way it went up.
And of course it's not going to load all the way. I don't know why. Well, whatever. The bottom of this chart is broken, but. The Ravens become like a top 3 defense in the league after they got Roquan. I mean, they went from.
Are they better than the Bengals, or are they
went from? There? I mean, we could pull up the chart. We could pull up like they actually they're close. I think they are better because they're just as good. They're just as good in pass.
I don't know. I think the bottom of the B is slightly.
Yeah, might be a little more right. Yeah. No, but I think the thesis when they got Roquan was like we can go all in on this defense with Roquan. And turn us back into like being an elite defensive team, and then Lamar comes back and we'll be golden. Obviously, Lamar never came back, and you can maybe argue, and I would love to have Sonny here because Sonny will probably argue that like Marcus Williams came back around this time as well. So Marcus Williams came back into this event that had an effect here. So it's not all Roquan. But, I mean, I think Roquan Smith had an amazing impact.
I would argue with the issue is that they were giving up fourth quarter leads because of blown coverages, and then Marcus Williams comes back. He had more to do with it than Roquan.
We'll argue that in the safety show. I will go over Patrick Queen's numbers, though, because, look, I know that they didn't extend Patrick Queen. They probably didn't want to pay 2 linebackers big money. And I don't know what the 5th-year option would be, but I'm imagining it's double-digit millions of dollars for a 5th-year option on an inside linebacker right now. But Patrick Queen's numbers last year, best numbers he's ever had in pressures, in sacks, in tackles, in stops. I mean, he was like in his coverage numbers, right? Yards per catch. Everything for Patrick Queen was better. He is, I mean, you want to talk about a Terrell Edmonds type player. Patrick Queen came in as like, you need to be our stud inside linebacker. And he was an absolute joke, right? I mean, we laughed and laughed and we just made so many Patrick Queen jokes. Then you put a legitimate all-pro player next to him and you're not expecting Queen to do anything. It's like, okay, now Patrick Queen, we just need you to be a serviceable player to be alongside. And that's exactly what he's been. I agree that, you know, you can make an argument that yes, they don't believe in him because they're probably going to get rid of him. But I think that has more to do with his like what he's gonna get on the open market, and less to do with like maybe the player himself. Because I think Trenton Simpson coming in can do a lot of those things as well, and they're gonna have him on a rookie deal for the next 4 years.
But wouldn't if they gave him the 5th-year option, it wouldn't be $20 million, right? It would.
No, but I was trying to look at. I think wouldn't it be like 10 though? It's like 9 or 10. You know, so do you want to put?
I just would expect
$30 million to your inside linebacker.
Exercise that.
Yeah, I think that's the question of like, do you want to pay $30 million to your 2 inside?
But linebacker? I mean, I do think I don't want people to think just because we're having this debate that I don't think that the Ravens linebacker room is good. I think Roquan definitely had an impact on their defense. I just don't think like the 1-2 punch for me just isn't the same. It's just not the same. I understand that Pat Queen had a good year, but Jermaine Pratt also had an elite year as well. Like Jermaine Pratt had a great year. Logan Wilson had a decent year as well. I get it. Roquan was exciting for the Ravens. They made that trade. It definitely worked out. I definitely, like I said, feel like he's the best linebacker in the North. However, when we're just talking about the room, I don't know. I don't know if Pat Queen would start for the Bengals. That's what I'll say. If Pat Queen was on the Bengals right now, I think he would be riding that pine.
Yeah, and look, I think that do the Bengals have more better players? I think I would agree with that. For me, though, it's, and this is where I'm going to get myself in trouble again, but like I just think Roquan is an elite of an elite player that changes an entire complexion of a defense. I did pull up the 5th-year option numbers. Yeah. Patrick Queen would have, if they would have picked up the 5th-year option, $12.7 million for Patrick Queen.
But I see where you're coming from, Tony. I wouldn't argue that at all.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just the thing, right? It's like they probably didn't. It's not that they wouldn't pick him up. It's like we're not going to pick you up for that number, which is, by the way, very similar arc to the Terrell Edmonds story, who the Steelers did not pick up his 5th-year option either because it was going to be around this. It was like $10 million, and like we're not going to pay you $10 million. They ended up bringing him back on a vet discount for a year, and now obviously he went to Philly, but. Similar career.
Don't draft linebackers in the first half of the first round if you could avoid them in the first round at all.
Yeah, don't. Yeah. I mean,
them tight ends. Have we not learned this? Like, don't draft the tight end in the top 5. Like, it's a bad idea. It's a bad idea.
After what happened to Kyle Pitts, I think I have to agree with you because if there was ever going to be a tight end,
OJ Howard,
in the top 5,
Evan Ingram.
OJ Howard. Forget about OJ Howard.
Man, we thought that was such a slam dunk. OJ Howard. He's gonna be. Remember, this is one from the past. Chance Warmack. He was Quentin Nelson before Quentin Nelson.
Yeah, I remember that one.
He was the greatest guard prospect of all time. He got cut by the Titans in like 3 years.
Yeah, okay. I'll go one further back for you. Robert Gallery, if anyone remembers Robert Gallery.
From the Raiders.
For the Raiders. Yeah, this is an elite tackle, yada, yada, yada. I don't even think he lasted his rookie.
Remember Luke Jokel?
Luke Jokel,
yeah.
You know what's the funniest thing about that 2013 draft? Luke Jokel was the pro-ready one. All 4 of those guys had long NFL careers, the tackles that went in that first round, other than Luke Jokel, who had a 2-year NFL career.
Remember the Jason Smith guy, the guy that went number 1 to like the Rams? He was like,
you talking about Greg the Weed Man Robinson?
He just fell off. Yeah.
He had a rebound in Cleveland. Then he got caught trafficking pounds. Across. Yeah, he doing real time.
That's crazy. Let's go to some super chats here before we get into everyone's number 1 player in a review for $5. Who has been the best AFC North preseason MVP in the past decade?
It's the Josh Dobbs Award. What are we talking about here?
Whatever decade Brandon Tate played, he was the GOAT.
Look,
Ola.
Not Ola. Is about to have 2 Hall of Fame careers for 2 teams in the AFC North in the preseason.
2 Czar Skipper. Okay? This is the guy who led the league in sacks. I believe twice. Twice in his career, he's led the league in sacks. in the
Yeah,
preseason.
Brandon Tate is
Hey,
like that's where
and you know what he did? He was top 5 in the XFL, which is like a preseason, but in the spring. You know what I mean? Like he was a beast. He got traded for like 2 first-round picks in the XFL.
Love.
I would say Dane Sazenbacher. Dane Sazenbacher used to do his thing preseason.
Okay.
For the Bengals.
Okay.
John Kitna played in the regular season. I'm thinking about what was it? Was it 2? What was your Charlie Batch?
I remember
Charlie Batch played some good regular season. It's too bad Sonny's not here because Sonny and I would razz Sonny about some nice Charlie Batch moments.
See, the Browns don't have that many preseason legends because when your team stinks, everybody who plays in the preseason plays in the regular season. Well, you know what I mean? Like
the Browns did lose to preseason legend Landry Jones once.
You
know.
Mason Rudolph, man, like disappointing preseason career for him. You know,
really? That's not even. I mean, that's real. That is real.
Super chat here from Hello FR for $2 says Ace ranked the Ravens #1 in anything. Just watch last week's episode because I went into detail about how I think had the Browns first based off of the average, and I had the Bengals and Ravens pretty close. But if you want me to answer your question, there's no way I couldn't have had the Ravens #1 for tight end.
The Ravens deserve
tight end room. Mark Andrews, dog. I started that train. I was on it way before Ravens fans were on it. He's in the neighborhood.
That's right.
The neighborhood, son. Classic.
We all have players on other teams that we kind of like stand for. It's hilarious.
And I think I also had the Ravens #1 for safety, if I'm not mistaken.
Whoa, spoilers. We haven't been there yet.
We haven't gotten there yet?
We haven't done safety yet.
No. Oh.
Have you seen him turn red arguing
Oh, yeah. Well, Minkah Fitzpatrick is just, he's a #2 safety.
I don't know, man. Minka. I'm taking the room with Minka. I don't know. Shiny Boy for $1.99 says, bro, we need Sonny to defend Roe. This is just hate.
Send me Roquan Smith highlights, Shawty Boy. You know what I mean? Like, I want to see him. Send me the highlight tape. Is it 2 minutes long?
Let me send you one real quick, Q.
Why don't you send us a highlight earlier?
I sent you a highlight earlier. Yeah, check the DMs, dude. I got a good one.
Let me go look at this. Is it the DMs? Is it in the Twitter DM?
Yeah, you got to.
At first, I thought he was for real. I thought because it was like all 22 or something.
I'll send it again because Sonny did like spam the chat afterwards trying to get rid of it.
Hold on, wait.
I'll put it back. Don't worry.
3rd and 8. Oh, Pickett's almost sacked. Oh, who's on coverage? Who is covering him? 18. What is 18 at? Who's number 18 on the Ravens? Google.
Not Brashard Perriman, I'll tell you that.
Is that a $40 million linebacker?
All right, we got another one here from Professor Chaos for $20. Q, who do you hate more, Roquan Smith, Allen Robinson, or Cliff Kingsbury?
I think they're overrated. I don't hate them. Okay.
No, you have hate in your heart, but who do you have more hate for?
Allen Robinson, he's fallen so far that I thought he was just overrated. He played so bad the last 3 years. I can't even say he's overrated anymore. He's just Allen Robinson at this point. Cliff Kingsbury, okay. I'll go on for 30 minutes about Cliff Kingsbury. Don't nothing grind my gears like that man's career. But Roquan Smith, I don't think he's a bad player. I don't hate him. I just think we're not critical enough of why that man's top 5. Like,
Ace, where would you rank Q's hate for these 3 players? Because for me, it's Cliff Kingsbury 1, Allen Robinson 2, Roquan 3.
There's a huge gap.
I'm going to go Kingsbury. 1, Allen Robinson.
Wow.
2, Cliff Kingsbury.
Wow.
3, Joe Woods.
And the Joe Woods.
Y'all flipping. Joe Woods. Remember Andrew Sadeo?
I don't know though. I think Q's hate for Joe Woods is gone now. It was just a sadness at the end, you know?
What?
It was just like your feelings for Joe Woods. It was more.
I felt bad for him because it's like watching a child trying to do a grown-up's job. It's like he shouldn't be ringing up the groceries. He's 7. You know what I mean? Like, this ain't his fault. He sucks. He's just not good. Like, it's not his fault. But yeah, Cliff Kingsbury though. That's probably I've been talking about Cliff Kingsbury since he was at Texas Tech. Okay, I didn't know who Pat Mahomes was, but I didn't like him because Cliff Kingsbury was the coach. Like, that's how much I don't like Cliff Kingsbury. He made me, Mr. It's Pat Mahomes, be like, nah, I'm good on Pat. Okay. That's how terrible of a coach he is. Okay.
So definitely Cliff Kingsbury to answer your
Imagine if North Carolina had Michael Jordan and couldn't win their conference. Imagine. He had Michael Jordan out there averaging 12.
Got another super chat from 1-1 Blue for $4.99. Appreciate that. He says, Ace, would you rather re-sign Higgins or both Reader and Wilson? If we go barrel chasing Higgins, we might lose all of our defensive free agents. Scary thought. I actually spoke about this in Spaces before. I think that would be the consequence of you re-signing T. Higgins. And to me, honestly, as much as I love DJ Reader, Logan Wilson, and those guys, I would do it because honestly, the DNA of the Bengals is the offense. You put Joe Burrow with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, I mean, you're going to have to outscore people. But if you don't have T. Higgins and he affects how open Jamar Chase can be, and then you don't have Tyler Boyd next season, yeah, give me T. Higgins over that. It would suck because I like Logan Wilson, but I still got Jermaine Pratt. I don't have a DJ Reader. The defense would definitely take a huge step back without those two. But the offense, I think, would remain closer to where they are right now with those two. So I'd actually keep Higgins in that situation. But I do think that that's realistic, especially now that they've extended Trey Hendrickson. I actually thought he was going to be the odd man out with potentially Reader and maybe Logan Wilson. But I think that is a strong possibility now, depending on how things go. But, yeah, I would take T. Higgins over both of those guys.
You got to keep T. Higgins and you got to keep Jamar Chase.
Yeah.
Everybody else is like, all right, who's coming? Like Joe Burrow, T, Jamar. Those three are staying unless T. Higgins gets a $40 million contract. Ravens, man, clear up some cap space. Y'all need a wide receiver. Get desperate. Give him the fully guaranteed contract. You know what I mean?
All right, let's go ahead and get into number one here. I'll start with Sonny. Number one, Sonny's got the Ravens. He says all-pro Rowe. Patrick Queen playing great next to him as well. After the acquisition of Rowe, Pat Queen will play like a Pro Bowl inside linebacker. So he's going to be better than Logan Wilson. Okay.
You was talking about him
year, I can only expect him to elevate his game, which I understand. That makes sense. Adding rookie Simpson is an added bonus for depth in case of an injury. He will replace Pat Queen next year after his Pro Bowl year this year. So yeah, he's got the Ravens number one. Not too surprised there. Another gentleman that has the Ravens number one is Tony. Tony, give your reasoning why you have the Ravens number one.
Oh, well, I mean, I think I did it. I don't want to extend the show anymore. I mean, I get the charts that I showed, right? Like watching the Ravens go from being what was legitimately a bad defense for the first 8 weeks to being an elite defense. And this team nearly won a playoff game against the Bengals in Cincinnati with freaking Tyler Huntley as their quarterback.
That is true. True.
I mean, I think for me, the impact that Roquan had. Now, I'm to Q's point, like show me the highlights. I'm not a Ravens fan, so I only know there's one Roquan.
All I'm saying is that the Steelers defense could look good versus a Deshaun off a 700-day layoff, and somehow Deshaun beat that team. The great Roquan Smith. Well, I don't think he played in that game. Let me be fair. Did he in that last game? Raven fans, let me know. I don't think he did because I remember saying this.
I'm gonna let Tony finish, but I was gonna bring that up. The playoff game.
The playoff game?
The playoff
Roquan
game. Roquan
didn't play?
No, he played.
Okay.
Oh yeah, he was there.
Okay. Yeah.
There were no highlights.
Yeah. So for me, it's you look at the impact of what the defense was before to afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's Roquan's an elite player at that position. And for me, I'm going to value the elite players, as we'll talk about when we get to the safety room.
Smith.
So for me, you guys know I got the Bengals number one. And it's funny that we talk about the playoff game. So in that playoff game with the Bengals versus the Ravens, Roquan Smith had 3 tackles in that game. That was it. Logan Wilson had 6 tackles, 4 that were assisted, and then Jermaine Pratt had 5 and 3. But if you remember, biggest play in that game was the Sam Hubbard touchdown, right? The 2 linebackers that pushed that out, Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt. If we go back to the year that the Bengals went to the Super Bowl, what did Jermaine Pratt do against the Raiders? He ended up having the game-selling interception to win the game in terms of impact. Logan Wilson had another interception, I believe, against the Tennessee Titans.
I mean,
to me, if you're talking about regular season, sure, you can give it to Roquan. But I don't think that there's any linebackers in this division that have had the playoff impact of what Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt have done the last 2 years in the playoffs when the game was on the line, when it mattered. So I'm going with the Bengals there. I also think when you talk about the room, I think the Bengals room is deeper. I think ADG, the only reason ADG isn't starting, in my opinion, I think he could be a second linebacker for some teams, is because he's got Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt in front of him. And a lot of people expected if Jermaine Pratt left, ADG would step in there. I think he's a solid linebacker because whenever we've had injuries to Logan Wilson or Jermaine Pratt, he's balled out. I'm not saying that he's on their level. I just think that he's a quality starter in this league. I think he'll leave after this season unless Logan Wilson leaves. That's your insurance claim there. And then you got Joe Bacci, you got Marcus Bailey, some guys that have at least had, experience playing from here and there. So for me, I got the Bengals there just because of the room. I think they got the best duo in the division, and that's where I've got it. Q, what about you?
I got the Bengals at 1. I think that
what have they done to you, Q? What have these Bengals fans done to you?
I don't like the Bengal fans. Like, you see how often
you've been beaten down and peer pressured into
no, stop it. If I felt like I was being peer pressured, I would have put the Bengals at 3. Okay. They don't pressure me. The Ace has seen my Twitter feed before. Like, if I feel like I'm getting pressured, I attack. Okay. I don't recede. Okay. But let's talk about the Bengals. Look, I was originally wrong on Logan Wilson, right? Remember, we were doing the original Logan Wilson take was like what JOK versus Logan Wilson and how JOK was going to be so much better. And then Logan Wilson had the season of a century. You know what I mean? So Logan Wilson, very good linebacker. I think Jermaine Pratt made some meaningful steps there too. And like these Bengals linebackers make so many plays throughout the year. And we thought it was fluke, right? That's part of the reason we weren't high on them coming into last year, because we were like, oh, well, they made a bunch of plays last year. No way they keep up that kind of volume. And they did. Like, they're just a really good playmaking group of linebackers. And I value that over everything at the linebacking position, right? I think it's a position where you need to be able to make plays out of in order to have that value that a linebacker is going to have there. So I value that more than somebody like a Roquan who, I mean, again, somebody sent me some highlights that aren't him getting made plays on. You know what I mean? Like, says, show me the Roquan Smith plays, Raven fans. Do not get mad at me and tweet at me passive aggressively. Show me some direct evidence and show me I'm wrong.
Does Roquan have a play where he stripped Travis Kelce to win the game? Because, Jermaine Pratt kind of did that.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm just wondering where these Roquan Smith Raven highlights are. I'm wondering where they're at. Because I typed it up on YouTube and I'm seeing a press conference from Roquan Smith. There's actually a 10-minute highlight reel that I'm just going to act like.
No, we're going to ignore that one. Keep going. Next.
But like in the critical moments of the game, you forget Roquan Smith's out there, which it's been a question about him, even if you go back to Chicago with him, right? He's going to be great on some of these advanced numbers. It's one of the reasons I'm surprised Tony would take this argument, because that's one of the reasons that Steeler fans use to justify putting TJ Watt over Myles Garrett, because they're like, well, in the critical moments, TJ Watt shows up more often. So I'm just. Well,
that's true. That is 100%
I'm just shocked that you would go the other way. So, now we got to move that back. You got to.
We're gonna use the run.
I bet the advanced numbers are great on Myles, but
I wouldn't go that far. Sacks in a season, is that an advanced number? Or is that?
Huh?
Just like most sacks in a season. Is that? Would you consider like a basic?
Well, that's not an advanced number.
Oh, that's not advanced. That's not advanced.
That's a.
TJ Watt has advanced to being the single season sack leader. But anyway, you were.
Man, I'm just saying, watch out for that regression. He got dominated in camp by a tight end.
The greatest blocker.
No, that's a tight end.
The greatest blocker.
I don't care if he was Georgia's best left tackle. You drafted.
I mean, we got 2 left tackles then from Georgia this year.
And you drafted the worst one in the first round. So
you make mistakes, you fix it. Like sometimes you draft Patrick Queen, and then
you get RG3, you take Kirk Cousins behind him, right? I get it. You know what I mean? You got to double dip. You sign Matt Flynn, you draft Russell Wilson.
That's right.
But in all seriousness, I think the Bengals this isn't as much of a statement on Roquan Smith as Raven fans are going to make it out to be, as it is a statement on the confidence that I have in that young linebacking core for the Bengals, even though they're not young. We just talked about 27 not being young for a linebacker anymore, right? Yeah. But this is a really good core. They've been really good for a couple years. They're probably the most playmaking duo in the NFL, and I have to give them their props. I mean, this is a linebacking core that almost won the Bengals the Super Bowl. Right, like if that pass interference call does not get made, they're probably in the Super Bowl, right? They probably won the Super Bowl. So that's how good they've been playing. They've been a really good group. They have the potential to play at a really high level and peak. If you could say last year was a down year for them compared to some of the stuff they've done in the years past, so I'll put them at 1. I'm just not as sold on Roquan as the rest of the NFL world. Maybe that's a hill I'm going to die on and be right about, or maybe that's one of the many hills I die on and I'm wrong about. Shout out to Kyler Murray. But it's just going to be what I feel. Like, until I am proven wrong on that one definitively in the way that I wanted to be proven wrong, I'm going to stay. I don't think Roquan's that good. But I do like Logan Wilson. I do like Jermaine Pratt over there. So Bengals 1. By the way, I would like to change my edge rusher room ranking. Can we put the Steelers at 4? Because I just realized we're ranking for the next year. And TJ Watt, I mean, like, he's basically a cone. Yeah, he's done. He's cooked. And if they were leaning on Alex Highsmith, it's going to be a really rough group.
Rough. Gonna be a rough year for that group. I forgot to even talk about Nick Herbig, by the way. Who can you be too deep? Can you be too deep at a position? Because
I bet he's coming for the Tuzar Skipper Award.
And that's a problem. Because
you know what I mean?
Multiple first-round picks traded for Nick Herbig.
Oh yeah. The Tuzar Skipper, he about to be on the Seattle Dragons wreaking havoc in like 3 years.
Well, we appreciate you guys for tuning in to AFC North Talk. We'll be back next week with another positional breakdown. Before we get out of here, was there anything you guys wanted to say? Well,
I have an overrated player for every other AFC North team, right? I've said that TJ Watt is overrated, whether I'm being serious about that or not. I have Roquan Smith is my serious. Like, I actually do think he's overrated kind of take that people think I'm crazy on. Bengal fans, who I'm going to say is overrated about y'all?
They forgot the year where we were like 4 for everything. Y'all forgot.
Nah, I can't go Joe. I can't go Joe because remember I put Ben over him and that they never let me forget that one. Yeah. So
we appreciate you guys tuning in. Let us know in the comments what your rankings are.
Still high on Joe Mixon.
Notification bell, and we will catch you guys next week.
See ya.
Higgins.
Yeah.